This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform where creatives can stand out with their online presence. Petite knit. She knows what she's doing. That is not going anywhere, because if I went in with no plan, dangerous things would happen. Hi everyone, welcome to or welcome back to my channel, Knee Knits. My name is Amy and here I talk about all things knitting, and today is podcast episode number 41 and I'll be sharing what I've been knitting and working on for the past few weeks. Now, today's episode might be my most casual episode yet. I am just a few days away from flying to Seattle for Flock Fiber Festival, which I'm very excited for, and in addition to talking about my projects and my whips today, I wanted to include some project planning and yarn shopping planning for Flock. And because it's just a few days away, I really needed to film this video and get it out to you all, hopefully before the weekend starts. So I'm filming this kind of at a not normal time for when I normally film. I had minimal prep time, so I'm kind of unscripted today, but hopefully it's still an enjoyable podcast to watch. You'll also notice I am in a new location today. This is our new house, which is really exciting to share. We are totally in the midst of moving chaos. Like behind me, we have a somewhat clean background. We still got some meter sticks from some projects. You can see the unpainted window trim, just one of the many things that we'll have to get to at some point. But my visual in front of me is just a huge mess of boxes, but that's just the reality of life in this stage. But I'm excited that I got the chance to sit down and film a video for you all. That being said, this is likely not my permanent filming location here in the new house. This is just literally the only free corner I could find that had somewhat decent lighting. It's not my preferred. You can see I have some backlight from the window, which I normally don't go for. All that aside, we have a lot of knitting and crocheting and yarn to talk about today. Thank you Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is a returning sponsor of Knee Knits, and I'm very happy to be working with them to bring you my Knee Knits website, ne-knits.com. With the Squarespace site, it was super easy to set up with one of their pre-made templates that I customized with my logo and brand colors. With a Squarespace site, I'm able to post blog articles, link to my social media, and sell digital and physical products. With optimized SEO tools, you can show up more often to the people who want to see your content. I've really enjoyed using Squarespace to build my website, and if you want to make your own website with Squarespace, head to squarespace.com to start a free trial today. Once you're ready to launch your website, head to squarespace.com/neknits and use the code NEKNITS to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and now back to the podcast. So for the past few weeks we have been moving, it's been busy, but I have been able to get some progress on my ongoing whips. Obviously no finished objects because it's just been so hectic, but I will talk about my works in progress now. So I'm going to start with what is probably the least exciting whip update, and not least exciting because it's not an exciting project, but not much has changed since the last episode. I am knitting this Cumulus Tee. It's a pattern by Petite Knit. I'm using the suggested yarn, which is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the color Putty. And I'm holding it single, and it's knit on 3mm needles, so it's a fingering weight t-shirt. And this is the Cumulus Tee O-Neck, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but you can see here it has the nice rounded neckline rather than the classic v-neck that the original Cumulus Tee pattern has. If you're unfamiliar with the Cumulus Tee, it is a raglan construction with a single stitch raglan. I think it makes a really clean shape to the t-shirt. The one thing that I do like about this pattern, the O-neck version versus the v-neck version, this one does have some back neck shaping that I don't think the v-neck version has, so this one should have a little bit of like a raised back neck, which will fit a little bit better than not having any back neck shaping at all. This is one of those patterns that knitting the body just feels like it takes ages. It's fingering weight. I'm knitting size small for myself, and this has over 250 stitches on the body alone. It is all stockinette, so it is kind of like a nice mindless project. We were traveling for a wedding this past weekend, so a decent length car ride, and it was a really nice car ride project because it's just stockinette. I don't really have to look at it too much to knit it. So in that sense it's nice, but in another sense, like I've been knitting on this for weeks and I'm maybe like halfway done with the body length. I do remember now when I made my Cumulus Tee, the green version, I think I made it just an inch or two shorter than what I would have liked in the finished garment, just because I was so tired of knitting the body that I decided to cast off early. I don't know if that'll happen with this one, and the chances are high, but it's definitely a grind to get this body done. While on the car ride yesterday, I did finish my second ball of pure silk, so I'm gonna use this opportunity next time I pick up this project and join a new ball of yarn. I'm gonna go ahead and do the sleeves, just so I have the sleeves all done, and then when I go back to the body, that'll be the last part of the t-shirt. I did finish off the neckline earlier. I talked about it in my previous episode, and I just like getting all these small finishing pieces or the finishing parts finished before the rest of the project. I just feel like it makes those parts more enjoyable to work on, and it makes finishing the project feel a little bit more enjoyable rather than finishing the body and still having to do both the sleeves and then still having to do the neckline. There's just something mentally about I prefer doing those small parts first, even though it doesn't change the timeline at all for when this will actually be ready to wear. The pure silk fabric feels great. It feels like it's going to be a really comfortable t-shirt to wear. I know from experience that I do love wearing pure silk held single, and I really like this neutral color. I think it's just going to be a classic wardrobe staple for myself. The next project I'll share is my Sevilla Blouse by Petite Knit as well. I have been working on this almost as much as the Cumulus Tee. I kind of had a little bit of a block with working on this, like I took a break from it and then I picked it back up, but now I feel like I can't put it down. The Sevilla Blouse is a drop shoulder boat neck summer sweater, and it's knit on 5mm needles with Èze Palette and Èze Trio 1. I am using both of those yarns for mine. Èze Palette is a fingering weight chainette construction, 100% cotton. This is the color ink, and I'm holding it with Trio 1, also in ink. Trio 1, I gotta look at the label to see what it is. This is a blend of 50% linen, 30% cotton, and 20% lyocell. This is a lace weight, so 50 grams, you get 350 meters in this little ball of yarn. Very thin. Holding them together, I gotta be honest, I don't think I made the best choice by picking these both in the color ink. I know when you hold them next to each other, they look like a little bit different shades of black, which is what I was hoping for in the finished fabric, because I kind of like that marl that Petite Knit has in her sample. But you can't see the marl at all in the fabric. It just looks black. It's pretty like non-dimensional, and I feel like holding the two fibers together is kind of like a waste because there's no color differential, there's no dimension, and I don't really know how much the Trio 1 adds to the feel of the fabric. I would have to do like a control swatch with just the palette single and then see how it feels compared to the palette plus the Trio 1. Because the palette is so thick compared to the lace weight linen, like you can see the thickness difference there. I just feel like the palette just overpowers the Trio 1 in the fabric, and you can't even tell that I'm holding these two yarns together. So if I were to go back in time, maybe I would have picked one of these in like the navy color. I feel like that would have been cool. I know Petite Knit just knit a newer sample in one of the blue colors. I don't know if it was blue and black or if it was two different blues, but I feel like that would have been a better use of holding these two yarns together. Otherwise, I just would have gone for like a thicker cotton held single. But that aside, I am really enjoying this project. The construction of it is similar to a drop shoulder, and it's a pretty basic drop shoulder. The back panel has no shaping, so it's just a rectangle, and then you pick up along the back panel for the shoulders. You can see here. Again, sorry the lighting is not as good as I want it to be tonight. But there is the pickup for the shoulder, and when you pick up for the front, you do a little bit of short row shaping, and then you cast on a bunch of new stitches with backwards loop cast on to make the front boat neck. Honestly, it's really hard to tell what's the front and what's the back. I don't know which side I'm showing you guys right now, but they look pretty similar. I know for me, when I am knitting this, if I'm curious, I just look to see which edge has the cast on edge and then which edge has the backward loop cast on edge, because they do look different, and I can tell So right now I'm holding up the front towards you guys and the back is towards me. So it would look like this on. And then you just knit in stockinette. There's no shaping at all. It's just 2 rectangles pretty much, and I'm working on the body now. And I have tried this on. I think it looks really cute. I've always been a fan of boat neck tops, so I really like how this wide boat neck looks on me. I am a little worried, or I was a little bit worried about the width of the neckline because I chose to size down for myself. I was in between size extra small and small. I'm knitting size small for myself. And when I put this on, the neckline almost like went over the edge of my shoulder points. And I wouldn't want that because then it'd be like an off the shoulder sweater, which is not the intent. It's supposed to be boat neck. So I'm like, oh, is it too loose? Is my backwards loop cast on too loose? It's like a pretty loose edge with the backwards loop cast on. So I was a little concerned, and it did specify in the pattern to cast on using backwards loop cast on, which if you've done it before, you know it's a pretty weak edge. It doesn't have much structure. So I decided to just keep going. I'm gonna trust the pattern and see how it goes once it's all blocked. And that was me assuming that this was the neckline. I thought that this was it. I just never read the whole pattern all the way through. Wow, that was a really nice interruption. Our neighbor just dropped off a bottle of wine saying welcome to the neighborhood. Anyway, I was talking about the neckline, I think. Yes, so I was talking about how I was worried that this was too loose. It seemed really big. I don't know why she suggested backwards loop cast on for the neckline because it's just not very stable. And I never read the pattern. That's where I was. I was talking about reading the pattern. And I finally read to the end of the pattern, and apparently you don't just leave this neckline as is. You do finish off by picking up the whole neckline in the round and then knitting a few rows and then binding off. And that is your raw boat neck edge, which I feel like is going to really bring in this very large neckline. It's going to tighten everything up. It's going to just make it look so much better than how it looks now. Not that it looks bad now. I was just a little worried that it was too loose. So I'm really glad that I found that out. Makes me trust the pattern a little bit more. And I know Petite Knit, she knows what she's doing. So maybe I shouldn't doubt Petite Knit. But this is coming along quite nicely. The fabric is super drapey. It's definitely thick because, you know, I say the pallet's a fingering weight because I think that's what it's classified as online, but it's very thick. I mean, I'm knitting mine on 5.5mm needles to meet gauge, and the fabric, it feels pretty similar to like Sandnes Garn Lena held single, but it does have a lot of drape, and you can see how the light is shining through it, that it's pretty breezy and open. So I think this will be pretty wearable as the summer comes to an end and the cool fall air and comes in and it's a little bit chilly like at night, or maybe I just don't want like a wool sweater, like even in the winter or the fall, maybe I don't want something that's wool. And I think this cotton one would be an excellent piece to wear instead. And I really love how I chose black for this because it's very classic. It's gonna go with a lot of outfits. I really like how this is turning out. I think I'm almost done with the body. Again, the same length that I make all of my tops to. I want it to hit around my high-waisted like waistline on my pants, probably a little bit longer so I can do a little bit of a French tuck because it's not like a tank top. I don't really want it to have any gapping around my waist, so I'm gonna go for maybe like an inch or two longer than this. Okay, the last project I have to share today might be the most exciting one, and it's the Èze Basket Bag by Two of Wands, or Alexis Tavel. I had just started this in the last podcast. It is a crochet project, so we're shifting from knitting. I am crocheting it with a 5mm hook, and here it is. Doesn't it look so cool? I just love how it's turning out. It just looks so professional. It looks store-bought. It doesn't look like I made this. I feel like you can't really get this like structure from knitting. It's so sturdy too. Like, that is not going anywhere. So the Èze Basket Bag, it's a French-inspired tote. It's crocheted in spiral rounds, and it's mostly single crochet. It's single crochet and single crochet spike stitches. So you start with a chain here, and then you start crocheting single crochets around the chain, and you increase every round according to the pattern, and it creates this beautiful oval shape for your base. And that part of the pattern is written out row by row or round by round, which is what I followed. There is also a crochet chart that you can follow if you like crochet charts. I personally have not yet figured out how to read a crochet chart, but you keep single crocheting in the round and increasing, and then eventually you stop increasing, and then you just crochet around and around and around. The stitch pattern does change from the base to the body of the bag, so this is all single crochet here. And then you switch to single crochet spike stitches, which is like arranged in a specific pattern. So it creates this really cool design. It really looks like a woven basket, and it's super thick. So this I'm making with the suggested yarn. This is Lion Brand 24/7 cotton in the color Hay Bale. It's this beautiful kind of olivey golden brown color that I feel like is just the perfect color if you're going for that straw bag look. I got the kit from Lion Brand, which included the yarn and the pattern at no additional cost, and then I think I got it during a Lion Brand sale, so that was really cool. I think this project in total cost me less than $25. It's 100% cotton, it's mercerized, so it's very strong. It has that sort of shiny look from the mercerization. And I am holding the yarn double on the 5mm hook. This is a worsted weight cotton, so holding it double is just making this bag feel super thick and super sturdy. I would definitely recommend this pattern even if you don't have a lot of crochet experience. I think this is a great kind of beginner or adventurous beginner pattern because it is just single crochet in the round, and you don't have to worry about gauge. And I've made like a few different crochet bag styles. I've done the granny square bags, and those are really cute, but honestly, I feel like assembling those granny square bags is harder than doing this because it's just in the round, even though it is taking me a while. Like I'm maybe 2/3 of the way through the body length. I mean, I can make the body however long I want, but I think I'm supposed to make this 8 inches. I would guess this is like 5 inches right now. And the pattern does include crochet handles that you just crochet with the same yarn. However, I am opting to do different handles. I kind of want it to look a little bit more professional than having the crocheted handles. So I ordered off of Etsy some brown leather tote bag handles. They have some hole punches at the edges, so I'll just sew them on at the end. I haven't received them yet. I like literally just ordered them today. And hopefully they are good quality and are a good use for the bag. I got like a tote bag length. So I think it'll be like 12 inches, like for the strap there. And it's in like a dark brown color. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I think it'll look really cute on top of this bag. I am considering also adding like a base, just so instead of this like sagging when I put stuff in it, it would lay more flat, like more of like a basket, like this. I'm not decided on that yet. The good thing with this type of stitch pattern, there's no holes in it either, like a granny square bag. Like this, I can put chapstick keys in here and they will not fall out. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to use this bag for, to be honest. I'm picturing it as like a purse. Like this will be like my summer accessory purse. Even though, of course, you know, maybe we're on the tail end of summer. Future me is going to be very happy when summer rolls around next year and I have this ready to go. So this is my Èze Basket Bag. Really enjoying this crochet project. Can't wait to finish it and to use it. I just love how it's turning out. And yes, that were all of my projects that I had to share for today. As you can imagine, moving in and stuff, minimal knitting time, minimal crafting time. So not a whole lot of updates. I haven't touched my Ingrid sweater, and I have a lot of whips that have been in moving boxes for over a month now that are long forgotten about. So that'll be a fun adventure when I finally unpack those and rediscover those projects that I haven't touched in a while. But I do want to take the next portion of the video to talk all about Flock Fiber Festival. I'm so excited to be able to go this year. It'll be my first time in Seattle, my first time at Flock Festival, and I'm just very excited. I was checking out the weather. It looks like the weather is going to be great, just like beautiful summer sunny days. I want to first share what I'm going to be wearing to Flock, or what I think I'm going to be wearing. Obviously, with it being warm and summer, I'm going to be wearing mostly knit tanks. I thought for Friday, I am going to be there on Friday, and I'm gonna wear my mini mock neck tank. This is a recent finished object that I made this summer. I made it out of Sevilla Yarn's silk sock in the color Strawberry Fields, and I think it'll be a great way to start off Flock Festival weekend with this really fun, bright coral pink tank top. And for Saturday, which is the first day of the actual marketplace, and the festival I think starts on Friday with classes, but I don't have any Friday classes lined up. So my first day at the festival will be Saturday, and I'm gonna wear the project that I made for the Summer Flock Along 2024, which was a make-along that they hosted to encourage makers to make something to wear to Flock Festival. So this is the Chrysler top. It's a pattern by Pernille Larsen, and I made this out of Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the color cream. It's this beautiful broken rib camisole, or broken twisted rib. Oh, not broken rib, it's twisted rib. And it's this beautiful camisole, and I've really enjoyed wearing this so far this summer, and this is gonna be my outfit for Saturday. And on Sunday, which is the last day of Flock Fiber Festival, I'll be of course going back to the marketplace, but I do also have a class with Sari Nordland. I signed up for her cables class, which I'm super excited for, and I have to wear a Sari Nordland design to the Sari Nordland class. So I'll be wearing my Kutar top. I knit this last summer. This is made out of Sanasgarn Tin Lena in the color Pearl Gray. It's this beautiful halter neck, all over lace, a classic Sari Nordland design with little straps here, so it has a pretty high neckline on me, and it's just this beautiful gray tank top. So this will be my Sunday outfit. Can't wait to meet Sari, and can't wait, of course, to go to the whole festival. I really don't know what to expect. I know to expect awesomeness. I know it's gonna be really fun. And I knew that I would be extremely overwhelmed by all of the yarny goodness presented to me to purchase. You guys know I don't shy away from purchasing yarn. I love building up my yarn stash in a selective way, in a way that I feel is productive for myself. And I needed to do some project planning before getting on a plane this weekend to go to Seattle, because if I went in with no plan, dangerous things would happen. Not that there's anything wrong with going without a plan, but for me, I knew it was going to be better to have a plan than to not have a plan. So we're gonna go into some projects that I'm thinking of making, you know, this fall, this winter, maybe even next summer, and talk about the yarns that I could knit for those projects and how I'm going to use that list to shop at Flock. A lot of you guys often ask how I go about yarn substitutions when I'm getting yarn for my projects. So what I'm about to share will kind of go over that, as well as like showing you some of my project plans for the next season and showing you how I sort of calculate what yarns I might need to knit myself a garment. So what I'm about to do is something that I do if I know that I'm going to a yarn shop and I have the ability to buy some new yarn, if I know that an indie dyer is about to open up a pre-order and I know I want to purchase something from the pre-order, or if I'm going to a yarn festival. So I'll first open up my Ravelry saves. I use Ravelry a lot. It's basically the hub, the virtual hub for all of my knitting. So I use it pretty frequently, which helps if you don't really use it, but you have some other way that you store your favorite knitting patterns. Maybe it's your Instagram saves, or maybe you just have like a notes app list. That's where I would go to. I would go to the pattern inspiration that I've wanted to make but maybe don't have plans for yet. For me, that's my Ravelry favorites folder, and I'll just start scrolling through them. I always start with sweaters just because I know that that's what I like to knit the most. If you know you like to knit the most socks, then I would go to your socks list. If you like to knit hats the most, I would go to your hats list. But I'm a sweater girl, so I'll go to my Ravelry favorites. I'll filter out all of the patterns that are sweaters, and then I'll start taking a look. And then from there, I will usually sort into what weight yarn that I want to shop for. Again, this is something that if you've been knitting for a while, you might already know that your favorite weight yarn to use is is DK or worsted or fingering. For me, I really love DK, and for me it's a reasonable weight of yarn to buy. Thinking specifically about Flock, this is a whole marketplace full of individual small businesses, indie dyers that are going to be selling things at price points for indie dyers, which is a little bit more than your standard commercial yarn. So for me, I like to go with either DK weight sweaters or sport weight sweaters sometimes, because I can get away with less yarn to get a full sweater. Whereas if I wanted a worsted weight sweater or a bulky weight sweater, I would have to buy more skeins of yarn, which will drive up the price to something that I know I might not be able to afford. So for me, I'm gonna go with DK this time, because I know that DK weight is my most used yarn. If I buy yarn at Flock that's DK, whether or not I use it in the intended project or not, I'm likely to find a use for it in the future. You can see there's a lot of petite knit, because you guys know I love petite knit. There's some beautiful like lace designs. We have some stripe designs. I see some patterns by Kuto Vakika. There's some Sari Nordland patterns here as well. And I'm just gonna pick out some things that speak to me. Sari Nordland's patterns I really want to get into more. I have a lot of her individual patterns, but I also have her book Softly, and I do have favorited some patterns from Softly. So you can see here Nilo is favorited here, Antiope is here. The Urania cardigan I do really like. I've seen a few people make this cardigan and I think it's really beautiful. I think it's a great sort of staple, timeless layering piece. At this point, if I find a pattern that I like and I know I want to shop for yarn, I'll go down to the sizing, I'll figure out what size I am, and then I'll figure out how much yarn I need for my size. So this specific pattern, it is a fingering weight held with a mohair as the suggested yarn, but it does say in the pattern notes that if you're using a single strand of DK yarn, to just follow the yardage for the fingering weight yarn. So I know I'm going to be making size 2 for myself, which requires 1050 meters of yarn or 1150 yards of yarn, and that is including DK weight yarn. So at that point, I know I need that much DK weight yarn, and then I have to think about what I can purchase at Flock that fits that category and what the yardage is per skein. So I'm just going to use a generic example. This can apply to any company, but I use Sorella yarn a lot, and I know that Sorella will be at Flock Fiber Festival. So I'm going to head to their website and then check out their base information. Every indie dyer is going to have base information on their website, which will tell you how much yards or how many yards come in each skein of yarn. So I'll go to base yarns here, and I know I want DK for this sweater. And it says here that their DK weight yarn has 231 yards. So at that point, I will divide the 1150 yards by 231. 4.97 is how many skeins I will need to make Urania if I purchase Sorella Yarn's classic DK yarn, which I would just round up to 5. And as someone who has made a lot of DK weight sweaters before, I know that 5 skeins of DK weight yarn, if they're sold in 100 gram skeins, is a very good amount of yarn for me. I've made sweaters with that quantity before, so no surprises there, and it sort of reinforces that that's a good value that I should look for. So I'm going to write down that 5 skeins of DK weight yarn for the Urania cardigan on my project shopping list. If I get the yarn and I choose not to cast on Urania, I know that 5 skeins of DK weight yarn will work for many other projects. I mean, you guys could see in my Ravelry favorites how many DK weight garments I have in here, and as long as I buy, you know, a color that I love, and if I look for a pattern that has a similar silhouette, like that was a pretty standard fitting cardigan. It wasn't like floor length, and it wasn't like a negative ease garment. So as long as I find a pattern similar to that, I could use the yarn that I purchased at Flock for a different pattern as well. So I like to keep that in mind when I'm shopping or preparing a shopping list, is how versatile the yarn is that I'm purchasing and how flexible it is. I don't want to get something that is super unique for only one pattern, because if I change my mind in the future that I don't want to make that pattern anymore, then I'm kind of stuck with yarn that I might not know what to do with. So that's sort of my process of creating a shopping list. Now, that was just for one sweater and one sweater quantities of yarn. I do know with my own personal budget, I do want to buy maybe 2 to 3 sweater quantities at Flock Fiber Festival. So let's talk about the patterns that I've been thinking and what different yarns I might look for those patterns. One pattern that I think would be really fun to shop for yarn for at Flock Fiber Festival is the Zosha Wrap Cardigan by Alexandra of Verton Rose. Now, this cardigan cardigan is super feminine, it's super fluffy, it's knit with Drops brushed alpaca, and I was looking at the recommended yarns, Drops alpaca, or the yarns that other knitters have made this cardigan with, and a lot of people will either use Surrey lace alpaca held double or silk mohair held double, both of which are pretty common bases from indie dyers, and I've always really liked how like very lightly variegated mohairs or Surrey laces come from indie dyers. So I feel like this would be a great opportunity to get some fluffy yarn for this wrap cardigan. It looks really fun. I just love the very clean lace pattern on it and also the giant bow. So pretty. So if I were to find the perfect color Surrey lace alpaca or the perfect color silk mohair, I would probably need about 5 skeins of those for this cardigan. So that's gonna go on my shopping list. And for this one, I'm not really gonna force it. I'm gonna just see if something speaks to me and then maybe get it. I really don't have any colors in mind. I'm picturing that something light, kind of similar to the sample photo, would be really pretty, like a light pink or like a cream, maybe something very lightly speckled. But I also feel like this would be really cool in like a dark blue, something like that. I don't know, but I really like the idea of this cardigan. Now, if I do buy 5 skeins of Surrey alpaca or silk mohair, I don't really make too many all mohair or all Surrey sweaters. I don't think I've ever made one. Oh, I have made one. I made one Surrey sweater. Which was it called? I don't remember the name, but I'll put up the photo. But I feel like there still is a lot of sweater potential if for some reason my instinct changes and I don't want to make the Zosha wrap cardigan anymore. I could make like a Cumulus blouse. I could do... There's a lot of options out there. I just don't know them, but I know there's a lot of options for fluffy sweaters. I also know that I just love plain stockinette sweaters. They're a classic. They go with any outfit. They're easy to throw on, and I just want one in every possible color of the rainbow. So I could keep knitting them forever and ever. There's a lot of patterns in my favorites that I have yet to knit, but would definitely be interested in. One of which is Petite Knit's caramel sweater. Now that is held a fingering weight wool with a silk mohair for a DK weight sweater. I love the turtleneck, the raglan. It's just a classic shape. So if I were to get yarn for that, I feel like I would go for just 3 fingering weight skeins of the indie dyed yarn and then purchase a commercial mohair, likely Knitting for Olive or a Sayer later on. Sometimes I do that a lot to sort of break up the cost, even though, you know, it's the same cost at the end of the day, but sometimes it's easier to purchase like half of the sweater quantity now and then purchase the second half later. Another option could be the Carl Johan sweater by Pernille Larsen. This is a sort of saddle contiguous shoulder sweater, also with a turtleneck, also holding a fingering weight wool with a silk mohair together for a DK weight sweater. I have that pattern already in the Knitting for Olive book, and I'm definitely interested in knitting it. Also in the Knitting for Olive book is the It's Not a Sweatshirt pattern. This is just another basic crew neck raglan sweater, but I totally could see myself making it. Again, if a really beautiful fingering weight wool speaks to me at the festival, it would be really easy to grab a few skeins of those for these sweaters. Now, I always have Sari Nordland patterns on my queue, one of which that I want to make is the Vivian pullover. This is a drop shoulder, sort of classic cabled, kind of moss stitch sweater, and it's a sport weight sweater. I don't often make sport weight sweaters, but the reason I'm intrigued by this is the suggested yarn. The suggested yarn is Rerum Natura Ulysse, which is a sport weight woolen spun wool. It just looks really beautiful. They have a lot of beautiful colors that kind of have a very subtle tweediness to them. I know woolen spun yarns have a very light feel to them, but they're very warm and they're very like, they just feel really nice. And Rerum Natura is sold by La Mercerie, which is the yarn shop that's putting on Flock Festival, and they also will be open during the weekend of Flock Festival. So I'm planning on stopping by there and would love to pick up a sweater's quantity of the Ulysse for the Vivian pullover. I do know that Sari Nordland has suggested that yarn for several other of her patterns. Honestly, they're probably patterns that I have in my library because anytime Sari Nordland has a pattern sale, I snatch up a few more patterns. So this is also kind of a versatile yarn that if for some reason my idea changes, I could easily use it for a different project, but I think it would be a great addition to my yarn stash. Although I do knit mostly sweaters, I do still want to have the ability to get a few extra skeins here and there. You guys know how it goes. You stop by a yarn store and there's just one beautiful skein that you just cannot go home without. So I feel like there's a lot of small projects that I could make. The go-to project is easily socks for hand-dyed yarn, especially very variegated yarns. I could easily make a stockinette pair of socks, but I also want to think more about like beanies for the winter or just other accessories. I've had my eye on a lot from the Sari Nordland Softly book, including the Millette beanie. The Millette beanie is knit in a similar style to the Musselburgh, I believe. The construction might be a little bit different, but the end result is the same, where you have a long tube that you fold into itself to make the double-lined hat, and Sari Nordland has great instructions in the book on how to make it reversible with a different color story on either side. If I chose to make the Millette beanie with 2 different colors for a reversible hat, I would need 2 separate skeins of DK weight yarn. Skeins that coordinate I think would be really cute, so that's on my list. Additionally, I could also opt for a single skein of fingering weight yarn held with a single skein of lace weight mohair or lace weight Surrey alpaca, so that could be another option, but I think it'd be really fun to go for the 2-tone hat, so I'll try to shop for 2 coordinating skeins of DK weight yarn. Additionally, if there are some really beautiful like eye candy skeins that I just can't put down and want to buy just one skein just for the sake of cost or just making sure I have enough room in my suitcase coming home from the festival, there are a lot of single skein DK weight sort of neck scarves. I've made a few by Sari Nordland and I've really enjoyed wearing them and knitting them, so that could be an easy 1 skein project that I shop for. And I have one more project to talk about that I may or may not shop for. I'm not sure yet because I feel like I'm just too tempted to get sweater quantities, but I've always wanted to do an advent calendar, but I've never wanted to purchase an advent calendar just because for me, I want to know that I 100% will love every single skein that comes out of the advent because they're so expensive. And so I had this idea to sort of create my own advent. I think it would be a really cool opportunity to get a lot of mini skeins from a bunch of different vendors at the festival. It would be a great way to try a bunch of new to me dyers and just get like a curated palette for a blanket. I am picturing making a blanket from the Advent. I really love Helen Stewart's Advent patterns like the Habitation throw or the Anthology throw. I feel like I really like how it's knit in the round and it just looks so beautiful. I can picture it draped on the couch over here when it's done, but I want to curate the palette. So I feel like it would be a really fun activity for me while I'm at Flock to pick up 25 mini skeins that would all coordinate to make a beautiful blanket. I come home, it's August, I package them up in like an advent, somehow DIY something, and then months go by and I forget what's in the advent, and then boom, December is here and I have a wonderful advent that I know I'm going to love and really enjoy opening through the month of December. I do want to do that. Now for me, my budget doesn't really account for that whole concept and all those sweater quantities that I just talked about. So I have some decision making to do. I don't know if these are decisions that I can make before I get to the festival. Honestly, it might just be like a game time decision. Like once I'm at the booths, I look at my list and I'm like, there's a really nice sweater quantity and I get it. Or I'm at the booths and I say, oh, there's a lot of mini skeins. Let's do the advent calendar. So undetermined what I will really bring home. Of course, I'm super excited to share what I bring home, but until then, that is the extent of the planning that I've done for Flock. I hope this was helpful if you were curious how I plan to shop for yarn and how I am planning to shop at Flock. I've never been to a yarn festival of the size of Flock, so I know I'm going to be overwhelmed. I know it's going to be really exciting, and I can't wait. Regardless of the yarn that I take home, I really feel like it's going to be all about the experience. I'm super excited for the class I'm signed up for. I'm just excited to be in Seattle and meet a bunch of knitters and crafters and fiber artists who love the crafts as much as I do. So at the end of the day, it's not really about the yarn I'm buying, but that's going to be a fun part of it. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're going to be at Flock, I hope to see you there. Please don't be afraid to say hi. And yeah, I'll see you guys after Seattle. Bye.